All right, and you know this drill. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course click that notification bell so that you get notified every time we go live. And if you're on Facebook, you can also go ahead and like my Facebook page, Adam Kowalek, Business Mindset Coach. Now, let me introduce my guest of the week, Deirdre Tshien. And she's the creator of the live conversion method and the founder of Growth Boss, a leading mentorship program for e-commerce business owners and who are looking to scale their into multiple 6 or 7 figures using the power of tribe building, funnels, and human connection. And I think that is extremely important, because when we talk about funnels and stuff like that, adding tribe building, human connection, I think that's the thing that will make the biggest difference. And I'm going to have Deirdre explain this today. So a big welcome to Deirdre to the Life Switch show of this week.
Hi Adam.
Hey, good to have you here.
Good to be on. Thanks. I love your intro music. I was like watching it, being like mesmerized. Didn't want it to end.
I know, it's a party. It's a party before
really
everything even starts. No, it's perfect. You know, Cruise Creative, they do such a nice job producing this show. I'm super grateful for that. So yeah, it's a great thing. Thank you for saying that.
No worries.
So you're joining us live from New York.
New York City, yeah. So I don't know if you just heard the traffic going past. I can definitely hear it, but
It's not that bad.
The delights of being over here in New York City. But you can tell probably from my accent that I'm not actually originally from America. I am from Australia, from Sydney, Australia, but moved over here almost 2 years ago now. So it was a great time, COVID hit. So I really got to experience New York from my apartment, which is awesome. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been so cool.
I can imagine. But it looks like, things are turning. I mean, there's traffic outside. The weather seems to be rather nice, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. The Americans are crazy. They all want to let loose. So it's like, let's just do it.
Opposed to Australians, you mean, or?
Yeah, well, Australia is crazy. Like I was just reading something where, so in America now, it's kind of like, in New York especially, it's like 500 new cases a day. That's whatever. In Australia, it's like 12 new cases a day. Shut down everything.
Yeah.
So it's like 12. There wasn't even 12 new cases a day. It was just like 12 new cases total. Shut down.
Yeah.
Everything goes in lockdown. So yeah, much. It's very different.
It's a different time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So tell me, okay, so I love today's topic. This show is obviously about transformations. Now, even though I want to get into the conversation about changing our sales mindset and stuff like that, you personally have your own transformations and changes and experiences, because obviously you moved from Australia to, across the world to America, but you've also run several businesses, and you've started them, run them, built them up, and even.
Oh, I think you've frozen, Adam. But
I'm back.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So yes, done a lot. Opened them, closed them, I think you were saying. And I'm definitely happy to sort of talk through my journey, because I feel like, we talk about transformations, and I've had so many in like so many different parts of my life. And maybe to give you a bit of context, as you know, I am originally from Sydney, Australia, moved there when I was actually a baby. So my parents are originally from Malaysia, and sort of, I kind of grew up as, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, as definitely from a first migrant perspective, there was just a lot of pressure, because my parents moved to give us opportunities, right? That's what a lot of times it happens like that. And so, and I was never really aware of it until, now I'm kind of older and wiser, and I reflect back, and it's kind of like they've had to make these sacrifices. And I think, in a way, I've kind of grown up just like feeling almost the pressure of making those sacrifices feel worthwhile for them. So in everything that I've kind of been doing and everything that I've done, I've always felt this, like, for example, I had to become a doctor. That was the path that I was on. from a very, very young age. So it meant like I started getting private tutoring when I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade. I had to get into, you take a test to get into a really good class for 4th grade. Did that. Had to take another test in 6th grade to get into the top, selective school in the state. Did that. So, I was kind of on this path, and, with that, and I, as children, when you're growing up, you don't really know it, or you don't really feel it or internalize, but like I just felt this intense amount of pressure. And so get to 12th grade, and we have to put in our university preferences, and I was like, okay, well, I'm on the path to doing medicine. My dad wants me to become a doctor. So that was, my first choice. But then it was like, okay, so if I don't get into medicine, what is going to be, what is it then for me? And, generally after that, it's kind of like, do you medical science or some kind of science degrees, because medicine is a science degree. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, I hate science. I actually I could not fathom the thought of actually doing a science. So I was like, why am I doing this anyway? So that was kind of one of the first big points that I was kind of like, I had to almost, I guess, grow up in a way, like make my own decision and be like, Dad, like, let's negotiate on this, because I don't want to become a doctor. So we decided. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do a law degree. That was the compromise. I'll do a law degree.
That's the compromise. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go into, I don't know, what do you call those things? Like marine biologist or something like that. Like, no, I'm going to go study law. Okay. I get it. That's the level we're talking at here.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I have to, because one of those things again where, and, this is definitely a theme as well that comes out, is like, when you do all these things and you put all this effort in, and potentially money, especially here in the States, when you have to actually pay for college degrees and things like that, like, and then you decide to make a transformation or make it a life change or something, it's kind of like, what do you do with all of that stuff that you either spent money on or you spent time on, or, that all of that, because that was kind of the thing for me. It's like, at that point, I probably wasn't strong enough yet to kind of like break away. I went to the top school in the state, which meant that everyone there was either becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer or becoming a management consultant or investment banker or something, like they were all, at, doing those things. So I think the thought of, for me and for my family, it was kind of like, if I didn't do a law degree or something, in that kind of realm, what was it all for, in a way? What were their sacrifices for? What was, all of that, what was it for? And so I was like, hey, look, I'll do a law degree, because really for me, in Australia, to do a law degree, it usually has to be a double degree. So for me, I was like, okay, I want to do business. I actually wanted to learn the world of business. So I'll do that. But law degree was kind of my Trojan horse into doing it. So anyway, so did my degree, and then went into banking. So that was my corporate, I was like, I kind of wanted to see that climbing the corporate ladder was like, maybe that's the thing for me. So went into banking, and I was kind of fortunate because I was put on this pretty big project of work, which was a huge regulatory reform, once in a decade type program of work that happens in somewhere like Australia. And it had, because it was so high profile, it had visibility all the way up to the CEO. And so I'd be like little old me, this junior burger in the room presenting to, pretty senior executives, which was a really great experience. What it did as well at the same time was it gave me visibility to sort of almost like the other voices in the room, almost what happens to when you do climb the corporate ladder, what you kind of have to do, the back channeling that happens, the politics that, you hear so much about, but until you're kind of in these rooms, you don't really experience. And what that kind of opened my eyes up to was like, do I actually really want to be doing this? Because you have to like, to kind of climb the corporate ladder as such. And so at that point I was like, I don't think that that's going to be for me. And I was at this loose ends with these crossroads of what does this mean? What am I going to be doing? And so I was feeling this like, what what does that mean for me? At the same time, my then boyfriend, now husband, we just moved out. And so it was the first time we had to, adult. We had to cook for ourselves. We had to do things for ourselves. And he actually started, funnily enough, he was studying medicine and he was miserable. So I was like, a pretty good choice that I did not go into that. But he was really finding a lot of enjoyment in cooking and especially baking, because I love my desserts. And one of there was this particular recipe that he was trying to perfect, which was this molten lava cake. And because he was enjoying it so much, we were both at these points where we're like, the thing that we're doing isn't really the thing that was going to bring us joy. And so we made the decision then to be like, well, you know what? Like, we don't have a mortgage, we don't have kids, we don't really have those typical things that hold us back. Why don't we just try it? So we decided to go ahead and open up a dessert bar. So that was our first business, was a hospitality brick and mortar business in Sydney, where notoriously high rent and notoriously high like minimum wages and everything. So it was like, we didn't know anything. We kind of just went into it, and we were like, we'll figure it out. And OMG, it has been a wild ride. So
I think that's so lovely. I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And what a journey. Like, I mean, I think sometimes when I think back on my own journey, how I left the corporate world, really creating a career and then basically walking away from it within a couple of days. And at the same time, what you're describing is this almost the whole life of yours being molded and groomed into, that corporate success, whatever that might be. And then you open up a dessert shop, like, that is what. How did you have to negotiate that with your family again, or was that just like?
Yeah, no, I think by then it was kind of like, well, I'd left the home. It's always the rules, right? Like, you're under my roof, it's my rules, that kind of thing. Yeah. But since, I was like, couldn't wait to get out so that I could start making these decisions myself.
I can see that.
Decisions.
Yeah. That's
so
amazing.
So I can, so talk about transformations. I feel like even just in the first, quarter of my life, I've had like all of these multiple transformations. And then since then, we've kind of grown that brand we had 5 locations. I think you mentioned we closed some. So, and then at the same time, we opened a second brand. It's a burger restaurant. So we have 2 of those. And they're still running. So they're still running in Sydney while we've made the move over here to New York. And oh my gosh, I don't know where to go from here, because I could talk about the failures of closing stores. I could talk about the catalyst of the move to New York. I could talk about other business that I failed. Like, Adam, what would you like to touch on?
I love that you're asking me. I love that you're putting that on me. All right. So I do, as you said, we can go anywhere from here, and I'm absolutely sure that you will be able to give, adequate answers to all of it. There is something about the how do you say that, the English word? Like, it's not the depth, it's the width. I think, like of your experience and what you've done, because you've had those brick and mortar businesses, open, closed, grown, and you're also, moving, so you're working remotely. There are so many layers to that.
Yes.
If you could pinpoint, and this is a personal thing I'm wanting to know, what's the one thing that every entrepreneur should or would benefit from learning or understanding?
Okay. So there's probably a few, there are 2 things that come to mind. No, actually, I'll talk about the one main thing. The one main thing, because I'm just going to keep and I think this is the topic, right? It's about, I think too many times, and I'm so guilty of this, because I have started and run multiple businesses, and every time I fall into this trap, I do. And then I have to, as my own, objective mentor in a way, and I've had mentors as well, I have to pull myself out of that, because we all start from this point of this place where we fall in love with whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's a product, whether it's service, like that's all, we're consumed by that. And it's totally understandable because that's the thing that we know, that's the thing that we love. But then what happens is that you keep like, why is this business not growing? Why am I not making these sales? And I was stuck in this definitely for my first business. I did not understand this. But so the one thing that every entrepreneur needs to know and be really, really, they don't even have to be competent or adequate at it at the beginning, but like they need to understand is sales and marketing. Like that is the one thing, because if you do not make sales, if you do not grow get your brand out there and you don't make sales, like you kind of don't have a business, right? Like that's fundamentally what it comes down to. And I see this time and time again, especially because I work with e-commerce businesses. Like there are so many people who love their product. They've like invented something or they've made something or they, and I did that with the choc pot. We have these desserts, which we know are the best, like they are hands down the best desserts that I've, definitely in Sydney. And, I would fairly say almost in, all the places that I've been to travel to, and I've been to a lot of places, like hands down the best desserts, hand on heart, I can say that. But that's not enough to make sales, right? You have to get it out there. You have to find ways of spreading the word. You have to actually market and sell. And so definitely that's almost the one thing. If you are even thinking of going into entrepreneurship or starting your own business, like you're going to need to be comfortable with selling in some way. Like I think that's just fundamentally what we all need to be comfortable with doing as entrepreneurs.
I love that. Thank you for managing to, I mean, I know it was, because I was going like, what are the top 3 or the top 5? But you know what? I was like, no, let's just stick with one. Yeah. What's the main thing? And maybe I'm influenced. Like I just finished reading the book, The One Thing, where it's like, there is one thing that's super important. You need to figure it out. So I was like, maybe no, let's stick with one. And it did a fabulous job at it. Now, there's a follow-up question, of course. How did you figure those things out? Like, was that just natural just because, you went into studying law and business as well? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I always, I never ever, and this is what I guess, I always like to live life with no regrets. And I've never regretted anything that we've done because I like, you just get so much out of everything. So for example, going to law, going to banking, like the one thing that I've gotten so much from those that experience is problem solving, right? Because that's fundamentally what, like you need to problem solve. And then starting my first business, I remember like there were days for months this happened where we would only be doing like $100, maybe it was like just a handful of coffees, and we were a dessert bar, but we were just selling coffees like at one point. And we had rent to pay, we had wages to pay, we had supplies to pay. We were like so deep in the red, and I was like, I got to the point where I just felt so claustrophobic even being in the store that, like it just got to that point. And it was one of the truly loneliest times for me that I remember ever in my life, because I was like, I not only feel like such a failure, I didn't even know how to get myself out of this. Like I felt so stuck. And, I did manage to find a way. After months and months of like trying all these different things, managed to find a way, managed to grow it. And suddenly there was momentum, right? There was momentum building. And then I, got into opening more stores, more locations, because that's what we want to do as business. We want to grow. But I think the thing for me, again, what I learned from, the scaling process almost was like, one, practically how to do that. The whole systemization thing is so important. But then 2, almost from a mindset, or like, if I looked back and I was like, where did I kind of go wrong? Because we've talked about the fact that I've had to close stores, I've opened stores, I had to close them. And I think for me, what that was because I let my ego get the better of me at that time, because, we were doing really, the brand was doing really well. We started getting courted, I guess, by landlords and by all these people to be like, you are the next big thing. We want you in. And it wasn't an existing like center or anything. So they were kind of like selling us the dream of these centers. And then we're like, yes, we're like, awesome. We're going to be surrounded by like really other great brands. Eventually that doesn't happen. We'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars opening these stores. And that was because, if I look back and I'm really, really honest with myself, it's because I let my ego get in the way, because we were being flattered. We were being told that our egos were being stroked. And I was like, yes, please, I want more of that. It's like that external validation that I think as humans, we all need in some way. I just let that drive a lot of the decisions, which, is definitely not, so it's easy for me to say in hindsight. But now that I know that lesson, I can kind of now, with decisions I'm making going forward, I can be like, okay, am I actually making this decision from the right place, from like an actual, business-led place, or am I doing it because I want the accolades, or I want the, whatever that is. So, that's been a really important lesson for me to learn. And going back to the sales and marketing, then it's like, literally, I've had to fumble my way through this. It has not been easy. I think the switch for me, like where that kind of happened to be like, wow, obviously throughout that journey, it's been like, yes, we need to make sales. So we need to, but it had never been the driving force. I'd never gone into a business being like, this is the thing that we need to start with, which now I would tell anyone starting a business, like, that is the thing that you need to start with. Even before you even have a product, like I would almost be like, how can you even build a tribe first, around something that is, obviously has to be important to you, because you have to like talk about it, and you have to create content around it and stuff like that, but it's going to be important to your tribe. And then once you build that tribe, even if you don't know what product you want to sell into it, you start asking them, and that is actually the way that you can actually make sales from basically day one if you wanted to. But how that happened for me was seeing the magic of it coming to life, because I was okay, so let me tell you a little bit more of my story. So,
yes, please.
So I had, so before we made the move to New York, I had, I'd started a new business, an idea with another co-founder, and it was in fashion tech. It was a fashion technology business, and we started in Sydney, and we'd sort of been experimenting with it. And then, oh gosh, something happened, which is a whole nother, I'll just mention it, but like we found, so in the choc bar, in my dessert bar business, we found out that a really trusted store manager of ours, he was managing our our busiest store, like our highest grossing store. And we found out that for the years, I think the 4 or 5 years that he was with us, he'd been stealing from us. And we're talking about, like, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars kind of stealing, not like, $10 here, 20, like it was a lot of money. And I think at that point in time, when that happened, it was like, when a betrayal like that happens, I think it sort of makes you think and rethink about things. And so that was a moment for us, for Ash and I, my husband and I, to be like, is this what we want to be doing? Is this, because we kind of, like, for me, I left the corporate world in part because I didn't want to be on that hamster wheel. But again, when you start your own business and you've been running it for a while, what you've really done is you just recreated another hamster wheel for yourself. Like, you're just kind of, and you find yourself, you go through the motions, and that's kind of where we found out, and we kind of almost needed that circuit breaker. We needed this thing to happen to be like, is this what we want to be doing? Is this going to be the future for us? And in that moment, we were like, I don't think so, because I know for me, I had always had these aspirations of working and living overseas. And so that was the kind of the catalyst for us moving to New York. And then, so I always joke about it, but so basically I packed my bags, moved to New York with my cat, my husband, and my co-founder in tow. So that was kind of, so my co-founder and I, so we have this fashion technology business, and we kind of knew, because technology is very expensive to invest in. And again, I wasn't going to make all the same mistakes that I had done. And I was like, I believed in the problem that we were solving for. But what we did was we hit the ground running with going out and actually speaking to our potential ideal customers. So at the time, it was either college students or sort of young professionals. So we went to Columbia, went to NYU campuses, went to basically to Wall Street, and we started just speaking randomly to women who about their problems and what we were thinking, like how we were thinking of solving for it. And what we found was that even though there was a problem there, the way that people were solving for it, they were pretty happy with. They were happy with how they were doing that, how they were solving for it. So we actually made the decision ourselves to fail the business, because we just we knew that at some point we could probably get product market fit, but we just didn't have that runway. We didn't have that kind of runway. So we failed it, and then we were like, okay, now what? And then fortunately, I ran into this friend of mine who actually did have a brick and mortar business in New York. So she has a chocolate retail business. And she was like, look, I'm looking to actually transition online. I want to get into e-commerce. Can you help with that? And I was like, I don't think so, because what do I know about sales and marketing? What do I know about, but she was like, no. Like, I know what you're capable of. I know what you can do. Like, let's do this. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, let's try it. And I had all of this imposter syndrome. I had all of these things happening, but like, I was like, you know what? Someone is putting their faith in me. I'm going to make this work. And then we did. So that's why we talk about I think you mentioned the live conversion method. So we actually, because really, I think that the thing for us, and the reason why she had so much trust in me and what I could do, is because with my background in hospitality and her background in having a retail, like a brick and mortar store, the common thread there that she wanted to make sure that she brought online was that human connection thread. Because when you have a brick and mortar store, you can actually interact directly with your customers, with whoever, and we did a lot of that in Sydney. She does a lot of that in New York in the stores. And so that was the one thing that she was like, we need to be able to, how do we bottle this up and bring that online? Because you lose so much of that when you get online. There's just so many barriers that, whether that's an Instagram account, whether that's, whatever, like there's so many barriers that then, come into play. And so that was I was like, okay, I think I can do this. Let's figure out a way to create that human connection, but bring that online. And so hence I created the live conversion method. And we did that with her brand. And she did, in that 1 week that we held what we call it a festival, she did $23,000 in sales. And I was like, and it made a massive, and I was like, that was for me when I could see the kind of impact that made, for her, because I was able to just focus on that. Like before, when I was building my own businesses, I couldn't focus on sales because there was all these other things that you have, there's the operations, there's staff, there's like all these other things that your time just gets sucked up in, that I think conceptually or theoretically, we know how important sales and marketing is, but until I could actually dedicate my time to solving for that, I was like, this is the thing. This is how important, like, being able to solve for this is. And that for me was when that light bulb moment happened. And so we did that. We went back to because as we were testing this fashion technology business, we were also talking to brands and boutiques. And so we had some contacts. So I was like, and their number one problem, time and time, like there was no brand that didn't say this. It was always customer acquisition. That was their one thing that they needed to solve for. So we went back to them and we were like, hey, we have this methodology, this system, this approach, like, do you want to give it a go? So we tried it, tested it, and time and again, it worked because of that human connection and that tribe building that underpinned it all. And so for me, that was kind of like this, this has to be the way, especially then you 2020 hits and we are all so disconnected from each other. And that, if nothing else, going through that experience that year makes us realize just how important human connection really is, and even more so in the online space. So I think that was a really roundabout way to answer your question. But
no, it's super, super great. I mean, I love it. I love how you managed to, not separate the physical store or the, brick and mortar kind of business, but rather fuse them together, with the online world and the physical world, and actually make something really, really great. And
oh, Adam, I think you're frozen again. Sarah. We're back. Awesome.
I seem to have a bit of a dodgy Wi-Fi today. It's one of those days. It happens.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, like, how I think that was magic, how you managed to fuse the physical store experience with the online experience, obviously, as well. We got a comment before from Sarah Jones, and Sarah is definitely one of our hardcore fans. She managed to catch almost every single episode. She's based in London. So she said, obviously, that's exactly what stops me from going all in. I'm terrified to have to sell. Now, you mentioned yourself almost, and maybe this is not connected, but I'm kind of wanting to see if we can be of any service to Sarah here.
Yes.
You mentioned once you were asked by your friend, could you help me take this online? You said, I went through that imposter syndrome thinking, which is almost maybe something where someone else could be when they're thinking, hey, do I need to sell? Can I sell? Who will buy from me? Who will listen? Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So I do have as always, every time you ask me a question, Adam, I feel like there's like 3-4 things that go off in my brain. But okay, so there's a couple of things that's probably helped me. One is just reframing what sales means to you. Because I know that like for a lot of us, it's like, oh, selling is that used car salesman thing. It's like it's being sleazy and slimy and everything. And like, unfortunately, it's gotten a bad rap. And, obviously because these other businesses haven't done it any justice. But, when I think about selling, I really think more about serving. For me, selling is more like, how do I give the best of myself? How do I give the best of my content? How do I give the best of all of that? Because, hey, if people vibe with that and, they see value in that, imagine what it's going to be like when they actually pay me to help them, right? Like that. So for me, it's really more about serving. More so is like, putting just adding value, building that tribe, adding value to them. And then, and it's not like hoping that they'll pay. It's obviously you have to be intentful about the fact that, I have a thing that I'd love for you to pay me for, but this is going to be like, these are going to be all the benefits you're going to get from it. So that's kind of one, it's like the reframing from that perspective. And then I think the second thing is, and it really comes down to, Sarah, I don't know, A, what you sell, and then maybe B, what is holding you necessarily back. But I think one of the things that do hold us back is like that whole imposter syndrome thing. It's the whole like, how do I put myself out there, and have someone actually pay me for the thing that I'm selling? Like I actually still, it's so funny because, we've been having the chocolate, like a dessert bars, my first business, that opened over 8 years ago. And even still to this day, like when I walk into a store and it's like full, like with like people are actually sitting in, like I actually still sometimes stop and I'm like, I can't believe people are paying me for this stuff. Like not in a way, not because it's like not good, like, cause that's not at all, but it's just more like there's this almost this unbelievable, this surreal, feeling that you sometimes get that like, wow, I'm actually providing something of value. I'm actually providing something that people are going to want to pay for. And sometimes I think we get so caught up in this, like in that mindset of like, are people going to want to pay for me? Like, who am I to ask people to pay me for whatever it is that I'm selling or doing? Or it's so easy to get caught up in that. And that's why, like, and so if that is, I think that for me, selling is like being pushy and desperate. Yeah.
Precisely. Sarah's
Which is, I totally like, yes. And so maybe, Sarah, it's the way. Maybe if you're feeling like that, maybe there's a reason why. And we just have to reframe that and go like, how is it that you can more serve first, add value first, and then ask for, the sale, essentially, ask people to buy. But yeah, that if I go back to that sort of imposter syndrome thing, it is so real, right? For everyone. And obviously there are different levels of it. But really what it comes down to is like a couple of things. One, obviously, you have to believe in the thing that if people are willing to pay you for it, then there's a reason why. And then two, again, depending on what industry you're in, Sarah, if you're, for example, in service or coaching or anything like that, where it's you, that's, like they're buying into you personally, then the one thing that's helped me is like, because I know I'm a coach myself and I definitely know that I don't have it all figured out. Like I don't, because otherwise life will be pretty boring. Like there wouldn't be anything left for me to learn, right? But the one thing and the reason why I know people pay me for is so that I can be at least one step ahead of them, at least. Because if I can at least be one step ahead of them, then I know that they can learn something from me. I'm probably multiple steps ahead, to be honest, but like at least for you, if you can just be that one step ahead of that of them, then that's it. That's all you need. And your worth, like that one step is worth, the money. Like it's worth being paid for. So that's sometimes what helps me as well. When I'm like, but I'm not an expert, and I'm not, but I know certain things, and I know them well, and that's what people are going to pay me for. So that's kind of how I reframe it in my mind.
It's fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Deidre. That was fantastic.
Right.
So, I honestly, I can only agree with everything you said around that, like how you would, reframe this or focus elsewhere. So maybe for anyone else, listening and whatever, and around the sales, like if you want to switch from a
I think Adam's frozen again. Oh, I think he's coming back. Okay.
I'm back.
You're back.
It seems to be working every time you talk. As soon as I start talking, I go out. So obviously this show is very much in love with you today.
I think it's just, the bandwidth just can't handle you, Adam. It just
Oh, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to do these mic drops and it's just like, oh, too much.
You really are.
All right. While I'm still here. So I was asking, I don't know how much you could hear, but I was kind of asking if anyone wants to switch out of that sleazy, slimy sales fear, let's call it that, because it doesn't mean they have that tactic.
Yes.
Where can they turn? Like, do you have resources you would recommend, books or courses or videos even, if someone wants to cultivate that service mindset versus the sales mindset?
Yeah, so I guess I have a couple, because there's a couple different. So definitely there's the adding value bit to it, but then there's also how do you also tell stories? I'm a big believer in storytelling in all of the content. And I say content, I don't mean like just an Instagram post, but like literally anything that you go out, whether it is a YouTube video or whether it's any lives or anything like that. Like I am such a big believer that you have to start with your stories, because that is where you build the human connection. And when you can build that human connection, then that's when you and then you add the value. That is when the selling bit isn't actually. And I'm going to be honest. It might at the beginning feel somewhat sleazy, just because of the fact that you're asking for money. Like, and there's no getting around it. Like at some point, you're going to have to ask for money. that's because you have to make sales. But I can tell you that it won't be perceived as being sleazy. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference between you feeling sleazy and then someone else perceiving you as being sleazy. And I could go into a whole other thing about perception too, but really quickly, like if someone does perceive you as being sleazy, by the way, it tells you more about them than it should about you. Because we always react to the thing that we ourselves are most insecure about. So anyway, that was a side note. But yeah, so storytelling is, I think, like one of the fundamentals. So start there and then think about how do you add value. And adding value really is, we can all add value, and we all do every day in our lives. Like when someone asks us a question and we answer, we're adding value, right? So the only difference is that you're preempting some of those questions. So, so resources from a storytelling perspective. I love the book Stories That Stick by Kindra Hall. So she breaks it down really, really well. There's also a book called, I think it's called Brand Storytelling by Dan. Or Don, I don't know if you know the book, Adam, but the name escapes me. But there's a couple of books that I would highly recommend around storytelling. That's a great place to start about how to even like structure a story, no matter how long or short it is. And then you go into, I call it like you start off as being the pre-hero, because your hero or the hero of your story should be your customer. So really what you're doing when you're telling your stories, you're being the pre-hero. You're being the, hey, I know what you're going through. I know how you feel. I can connect with you because I've been there. I'm that pre-hero because you are the hero. And then I talk about the moment when you flip into the guide. And so when you flip into the guide, this is when you then go into the value adds. This is when you go into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many tips, how-tos, secrets, whatever it is, about how you were able to solve for that problem that you're talking about, right? So right now your hero is facing a problem. They're in a conflict, and you are now their guide. You're going to be the one who helps them to get through that conflict because you've been able to yourself as the pre-hero. I don't know if this is all making sense, Adam. Can you stop me and let me know if
it does? Okay. I like it. I think Donald Miller, the story brand,
yes, well, Miller,
right?
Yes.
So he goes into this in quite some depth, explaining the guide and the hero and the hero's journey and all of those things, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I've kind of adapted it a little bit for and created another framework, which is like, the pre-hero, because that's not a thing. I just made that up because it's kind of like you telling your story of when you were in your hero's shoes, and how you were able to overcome the problem or the conflict. And then when you flip into the guide, that's when you're now talking about how did you do that? And that's where you add value. That's when you start to add value. And so then once your customer, your audience loves you because you've been able to help them, they know, like, and trust you, then asking for them to buy, asking for the sale actually becomes really natural. Because it's like, hey, you've gotten heaps of value out of this. You've been able to, like, I've been through in my own business for Growth Boss. I hold challenges, and even in that challenge, it's 3 days. I've had people commenting about they've already implemented the things, and they've been making like $600 in sales, like $1,000 in sales. Like, they've already gotten so much value out of that. So it's like, by the time I'm like, hey, imagine if you paid me to do imagine if you were on the inside, right? Like, how much more progress could you make? And so that's when it becomes really, really natural to then actually just sell off the back of you having added the value and having told your story, because were able to connect with them. So that's kind of how.
I like it.
I know I went into this long, but those are a couple of resources I would.
It's perfect. And challenges like that, is that something you do on a regular basis? Or
I do, yeah. So I currently am doing them every month, basically. I call it my 3-day call to converted challenge.
And if people would like to join a challenge like that,
where would they? Yes. So you can sign up at thegrowthboss.com/challenge. It's currently, so my next one is happening in about 2 or 3 weeks time, and it's free. It's 3 days. Come enjoy it. We'd love for you to be part of it. And definitely, so thegrowthboss.com/challenge. So I go through some of the fundamentals of your messaging, and then I go through what I call the traffic pyramid. So it's kind of like, where do you actually go find your sources of traffic? And then I talk about the live conversion method, which is now, how do you actually convert? So how do you build that human connection? How do you build that tribe and then actually convert them? So I cover that all. It's jam-packed in 3 days.
I love that. I need to sign up for that. I'm going to go visit that link and go straight in.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. So while we're on that topic, I have one final question, and before I kind of ask that one, where can people, besides the challenge, how can they connect? Where do you want people to go to find out more about you?
Yeah, so a couple of places. Obviously, I'm on Instagram, so that's at The Growth Boss, and I have a free Facebook group as well. So I think that's the bit.ly link for it. Those are probably the best places to connect with me. And then the challenge, obviously, and my LinkedIn. There you go. Thank you. Thanks, team, for bringing that up. That's my LinkedIn as well.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I am definitely going to join that. You said it's in 3 weeks, the challenge, yeah?
I think so. It's June 10th, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
I run my own summit on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of June.
Ooh.
So maybe I'll be able to, catch that in between. But it sounds really interesting.
Oh, it's June 21st. Okay, I was wrong. June 21st.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That gives me enough time. Oh, I can do this.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Deirdre, one final question. There are so many really powerful things you've already shared, and I've actually drawn them out of you saying, like, what's the one thing that's super important? And I still have one final question. So now you have the whole world listening to you. You've got the microphone and everybody can hear what you have to say. What's the one thing or the message you would like people to take away from that?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, okay. I feel like I'm gonna I don't know. I don't feel like I have my own original words, because the thing that comes to mind is, like, I love this speech by Theodore Roosevelt, where it's like the men in the arena. I'm sure that a lot of you know it. I adapted to the woman in the arena. But you've got to be that person. You've got to be that man or that woman in the arena. For anyone who doesn't know the speech or the quote, Cliff Note version of it is basically that, whether you're afraid of judgment, whether you're afraid of other people throwing stones at you or whatever it is, like the thing is that they're not the ones in the arena, which means that they're never going to find success. They're never going to be the ones that grow. They're never going to be, the things that you want to be and do. You have to be that man or the woman in the arena to actually, you're going to get bruised, you're going to get beaten up, you're going to get all of these things, which 100% you are, having been through all of that. And I'm sure in my future, I'm going to get even more bruised and even more broken and everything else. But unless you put yourself in the arena, you are never, ever going to realize your potential, actually fulfill your potential and more, and actually create the success that you want to create and you can create. So I think that'd be the one, like, be that person, get in the arena and just do it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And because it became almost again, a call to action to that tribe of yours, where we even had Sarah catching this live, where she's saying, I'm afraid to sell or put myself out there or whatever that might be. Yeah. And here you're saying, like, enter the arena. That's the place where you get to learn. You'll get bruised, but it's also how you get strengthened and hardened and, all of that. And I want to just say, I actually don't think that just because we had the microphone to the world, we need to be original in terms of, like, I have to have my own words. Yeah. Something that my coach taught me, a couple of years ago, he said, and he grows businesses online a lot with messaging and storytelling. And he said, it doesn't matter if it's, no, hang on. What's the actual thing? It doesn't have to be new as long as it's true. And, I've tried to Google that because I think he referenced someone when he said that. But I honestly think that for anyone, and this goes into what Sarah said, about not daring to put herself out there or feeling like an imposter. Yeah. Give credit where credit is due, right? Yeah. So don't go stealing things. And at the same time, it's not about needing to come up with something absolutely new, as long as it's something that's true. And I want to connect that back to what you did as well, because the bandwidth is allowing me to finally speak.
Even though I know you're going to drop a mic. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. But don't tell the system. So, what you said about get to know your customer before you launch, get to know your customer, do that market research, all of those things, because I kind of think that's part of it as well. It doesn't have to, when I say it doesn't have to be new, as long as it's true. Well, you can exchange the truth with, as long as it's something that people want. Like, as long as there's something, there's a need for it. There's someone saying, I'd pay for that. Yes. Right? So, I think this conversation with you today was exactly what the title said, even though I didn't script it, didn't plan for it to be that way. But, how we change the sales mindset. You've demonstrated that in such a fabulous way today through your own story and also the things that you've been sharing.
Thank you so much. And just one last thing to add to that, because Adam, you're 100% right. Another thing that helps me is, and sometimes I get asked the question, if you were to write a memoir, what would the title of that be? And I was like, oh gosh. And finally, I think I've kind of distilled it to the one thing, which is sucking a little less.
That would be the title.
That would be the title of my memoir.
I'll buy it.
I am such a believer that, and it kind of ties in with the whole like get in the arena, because the more that you do that, you just have to know and have faith that you are going to suck a little less each time. Like, yeah, 100% you're going to suck the first time. Like Sarah, maybe selling, you might suck the first time. That's okay. That's okay. We all do. But you do it and you keep doing it, and you just suck a little less, you suck a little less, you suck a little less until, hey, you might actually find you're kind of pretty good, right? Like that's the journey that we all go on. Like that's it. So get in there, and and thank you, Adam. I love what you said about the whole like it doesn't have to be new as long as it's true. Thank you. I needed that. So.
Good. I'm glad you found some use for it. And I'm sorry that we didn't have a link to your pre-order of your memoirs, but it's you send that afterwards, and we will set it up.
Sure.
All right, Deirdre, thank you so much for coming on this show. You were such a star today.
Oh, you're so
and not for just the content and your stories, but the fact that you managed to hang in there while I was stepping out from the broadcast. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Sarah, and anyone else for joining us.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Deidre, I hope to stay in touch with you because I do want to read that memoir of yours when you release it.
Sure.
And until then, and also I'm going to join your challenge. Sarah said she's joining as well. So you're going to see some familiar faces there.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right. Be well and take care. Wow. Okay. That was a really energetic conversation for sure. And hey, I was definitely having some technical issues with what was going on my side. I'm glad that you guys stayed with me and with us doing this. I kind of want to say something else today. I mean, on the topic of business today, it was such a fantastic conversation about sales mindset and all of that. So thank you for watching that today. And before we leave the stream, if you are an inspiring entrepreneur wanting to turn your hobby into a profitable business, or perhaps you are already struggling being a purpose-driven entrepreneur, I want to invite you to this summit that I'm putting together. So join me and the 13 other marketing and business experts on the Authentic Business Building and Marketing Summit. It's happening on June 8th, 9th, and 10th. And we're going to be learning how to market yourself, build a lifestyle-friendly business, and create not just customers, but turning them into loyal and raving fans, which is something we talked about when we talked about a tribe. And this is all for free. So when you join the summit, you can do this over at authenticbusinesssummit.com, grab your own free ticket, and that's it. Hope to see you on that one. Plus, I hope to see you next week on the Live Switch Show, same time, same place.